Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and greeting everyone. Salam, we love UPM. On behalf of the Computer Science and Information Technology Faculty Representative Council and the Student Representative Council MPP 2025-2026, we warmly welcome all of you to webinar series Hack the Hunger. My name is Amir Rizlan and I will be your moderator for today.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Eileen. I am your co-moderator today. Thank you for taking your time to joining us this afternoon. This webinar will run from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. via Microsoft Teams conference.
Webinar series Hack the Hunger is a two-day webinar series designed to explore how innovation can help address hunger and food security challenges. Today marks our first session, which will focus on the topic of hackathon.
In this session, participants will gain valuable insights of hackathon strategy, idea development, and practical exposure from industry experts. To start off this webinar, we would like to warmly welcome our director, Russell Tang Henshenro, to give his opening speech. We welcome you to begin your speech.
So a very good day and good afternoon to everyone. So thank you for joining this webinar. So first and foremost, allow me to thank my sincere gratitude towards our respected dean, which Dr. Shamala for the continuous support and encouragement for our student leaders initiatives. So I would also like to express my appreciation to our Deputy Dean for Academic, Student Affairs and Alumni, Associate Professor Dr. Hazira Zuzalil, as also our Council advisor for all the guidance and support given from procedure to everything. And my also special thanks go to my program advisor, Dr. Azilawati, whose valuable advice, patience, and her guidance actually helped me a lot in solving a lot of difficulties during this program. And last but not least, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to my organizing committee, as well as the president of Council, Kimberly, for giving us all the support and all the MPPs in UPM. Okay, so to all the participants, I hope you get to gain something from this webinar. It's something that I think would be quite relevant to our field and is something that you are able to apply in the real world. So thank you for your time, enthusiasm, and your participation. So I hope that the knowledge and insights shared today will actually help you. And don't forget to join Putra Hack if you haven't registered. So thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mr. Russell Tang, for the inspiring opening remarks.
So before we proceed, here are a few reminders. Please keep your microphone muted throughout this session. And you may type your questions in the Q&A function. And lastly, a Q&A session will be conducted at the end of the session.
If you encounter any technical difficulties, please inform us in the chat and our technical team will assist you.
Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today. Mr. Haziq Hakimi Maslizan is currently a data engineer at PayNet. He is also an alumni at the Faculty of Computer Science and Information Technology, University Putra Malaysia. He is an AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate and has valuable experience in data engineering and technology-driven solution. So during his time at university, he actively participated in various hackathons and datathons, including PayHack Open Finance Hackathon, Hackathon, and Hack MCMC Datathon, where he and his team achieved several recognitions. He has also served a preliminary judge for the Google Workspace Hackathon 2024.
With his strong background in both industry and hackathon competitions, we are confident that today's sharing will provide meaningful guidance, especially for those interested in participating in hackathons. Participants may drop your question in the chat box at any time. We will address them during the Q&A session.
Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Haziq Hakimi Maslizan. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much to moderators. Thank you again to organizing team for inviting me as a speaker. I'm truly honored. So kudos to you guys at FSKT MUPM lah. So uh, wi- without further ado, let me share my screen for a while. Okay. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, sir.
All right. Okay. Without further ado, I will start the webinar. So for today, for this session, I will be giving guide on your first hackathon. Probably not your first, but I would like to cover all the basic, really basic fundamentals, which I find that it's really useful for you guys to have a strong fundamentals because that is the foundation of your performance during hackathon. So if you able to grasp the fundamentals really tight, then regardless of any hackathon, you are able to adapt. So before we start, I would like to introduce myself. The moderators already have made an introduction of me, but just to re-clarify or to restate again. So my name is Hazid Hakimi bin Mazisham, and currently I'm a full-time data engineer in a data science / ML team at PayNet. So data engineer is basically you are being a software engineer for the data science. So that's the layman's term for it. So previously I'm also a undergrad at computer science in multimedia departments. So I'm an alumni at FSKTM UPM and I'm graduated on 2025. So my experience in hackathon is I've joined in total of 10 hackathons and I was invited to 2 hackathons as a preliminary judge. One is Google Workspace Hackathon and another is PayHack 2025. So I also were invited as a mentor, official mentor for two hackathons lah, including Ideathon, which is also organized by PayNet as well. So I had a lot of opportunity and quite an experience guiding all the young and bright minds in their hackathon journey. So one of the hackathons that I joined and were able to Alhamdulillah to secure a good place is PayHack 2025, which is I'm sorry, my bad, PayHack 2024, and another is Varsity Hackathon, which is organized by USM. So both of these hackathons is actually an annual hackathons, so it will be held every year. So if you're able to still be eligible to join those hackathons, be my guest, just join it. You got nothing to lose. It's a really good experience, I would say. And then I also were also invited as a speaker in Godamla to also teach about the fundamentals of hackathon. And I also were a preliminary judge for Google Workspace Hackathon. So in today's webinar, I will break it down to 2 subsessions, which is first session is your introduction to hackathon. And here we will cover or answer the question, what is hackathon? And how do you come up with a good idea? How to build your idea? And finally, how to present your idea. So all of these questions will be answered in the first session. And next subsection will be my hackathon tips 101, where we will apply what we have learned during the first session into in the sample case study. And I would like to also provide some useful hacks that I find very useful for everyone, especially if they join hackathon. And also will along the way, along this webinar, I will slip in some of my experience sharing to you guys. So for the first question, what is hackathon? and why you should even consider joining it. So by definition, hackathon is an event in which a large number of people meet to engage in a collaborative computer programming. So it's an event where you collaborate with your teams to build something that serves or to solve an issue. Then after you have built it, you have to present it to probably the judges or the stakeholder or the domain experts that is involved with that particular domain or the problem that you solve. So here are just like pictures that I got from Facebook, Jump Hack Facebook, which is one of the most popular hackathon organizer in Malaysia currently. So they organize PayHack, they organize Deriv AI, which they just organized lately. So here are just like briefly like some of the scenes in hackathon. So okay, now we have covered what is hackathon. Now, why do you even should consider joining it? First reason is, of course, is the lucrative cash prize. I think that hackathon event, since it involves a lot of corporate sponsors, and they have a large capital of organizing it, this event tend to have like a really big cash prize. So hey, who doesn't like money, right? So be my guest, join as many hackathons as you want and secure those cash prizes. And other than that, I think like aside from monetary benefit, I would say that the most impactful benefit is the long-term benefit, which one of my case is the networking that you gain from joining hackathon. For instance, previously during my undergrad years, I joined a hackathon called iSango, digital hackathon. And when I joined, I didn't even secure top 3. I actually got a 4th place. But post hackathon, the vice president of data engineering and vice president of data science team approached me and said, hey, I really like your idea. So let's meet up, discuss about how we are going to move forward with your idea to be implemented in iSango. So those are really good experience. Like it serves as a stage for you to showcase what you are capable of. And thirdly, is career growth opportunity. So first, joining hackathons, even you doesn't need to win for joining hackathon to look good on your resume. Just joining also shows that you are really proactive and you are really wanted to learn and goes outside the box and on your own commitment. And I would say, and aside from that, I also would like to share that when I won PayHack 2024, I was approached by one of the people at PayNet, and they offer me internship opportunity lah. So back in my undergrad years, I served PayNet as an intern at data engineering, as a data engineer at the same team that I'm currently working right now as a full-time. So those are really big opportunity and really big benefit that you can gain from joining a hackathon itself. Now, okay, let's get straight into the agenda. So when you're going to join a hackathon, or where do you even get started, right? So those are the questions that a lot of people doesn't really have the answer. They don't know where to start from. So as a layman term, like very high over, here are the flow chart of phases that you have to do inside when you join a hackathon. So first is the ideation phase, and it goes to a development, and finally showcasing your idea. So and if you notice, there's like a really invisible arrow from development that points to ideation, and it calls on the feedback loop. So why that's the case is because 99.9% of the case that when you develop your solution in hackathon or anywhere else, it's not always going to be like a waterfall or like a stream of river where it just goes straight linearly without even going back. There will always be a point where you think throughout your development where you think, hey, this particular idea is not really good, or there are possibility of improvement, or that there are other way or approaches that can solve this particular problem. So you always go back to the ideation phase, brainstorm, and then develop it. So it's always back loop. So and in terms of showcasing or presenting your solution, you can't really go back where when you at the stage you can patah balik lah. You cannot U-turn back to the development or ideation phase. So usually that's where the feedback loops always goes lah. So in ideation phase, so typically these are the high level overview of what you have to think or what you have to really brainstorm, and these are also the elements that you will have to put inside your slide. So I will not really give like I will not get into details of what this of every one of these each of these item, because I think that because at the end of the day you can just get it from Google, or you can just get example of pitch deck from, for example, Netflix previously Netflix pitch deck or Grab pitch deck, and just like copy paste 1-to-1 with your particular hackathon deck. It doesn't really serve any impact, because especially if you just copy paste things without knowing the significance of it, then it will be less impactful. Ultimately, hackathon or pitching is basically an art. It's an art where you want to convince the judge or the people that you are presenting to that out of every team in that joined that particular hackathon or joined the event, your team is the one that is able to solve this particular problem statement the best. So it's an art of convincing someone lah. So I would say that if you're convincing someone, especially in doing hackathon where you have like a short time frame, probably 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, then the weight of every word that comes from your mouth is quite heavy. So you have to limit your word count, but also have to make sure that it's really impactful and giving you the most chances to influence or convince the judge. So that's why I would like to, instead of telling you or showing like as we getting into detail like the example of problem statement, solution features, competitor analysis, I think the best thing is I will touch upon what are the significance or the importance behind every bit of this item, and it ultimately coherently make up like a good pitch deck. So getting into the details, so essentially this part in the black right here is basically what the hackathon organizer will provide. So usually they will provide a domain, and sometimes it's very rare, but sometimes they will also provide a problem statement. So usually they will provide a domain, then you have to derive the problem statement out of it. And here in the blue is basically what you need to think or what you need to brainstorm out of those elements or items that the hackathon organizer have given you. So for example, this hackathon organizer have given you a domain, and then you derive this particular problem statement. Then from the problem statement itself, what you have to do is you have to derive the pain points. So given a problem, you have to find who are facing that particular problem, which is your target market lah. Target market is basically a demographic in which you are aiming to solve their problem. So you have this particular problem statement, and then you have the demographic of people whom is facing that particular problem, and then you are deriving their pain points. And after you have derived their points, only then you go straight into finding the solution for their problem. And then after you have find a good solution for their problem, only then you move forward with competitor analysis. So this is very significant because you want to evaluate your idea. So let's say you have, for this particular pain point, you have derived solution A, solution B, and solution C. Now you have to do like a market check and to find, is there any existing solution or businesses that already tackling this particular pain point that you are tackling, and also derive the same if whether they have derived the same solution as you. So after you have, so essentially you have to compare your solution and their solution, and essentially you cannot always go with something that already has been solved. So let's say that particular problem is already being solved by company A, and then you are giving the same solution as them. So ideally it will look to the judge, it will look at the judge and saying that that you are not doing your market research really good. So essentially what you have to came out is something different, something like market breaking, say something that can break the ecosystem. So even let's say like this particular problem, it has already an entity that solved the problem. For example, I don't really have any example on top of my brain, but essentially let's say a particular problem is already an occurring problem, and then there's always an entity that or businesses that try to solve that particular problem. So you identify that, hey, they are tackling that particular problem, they are giving solution, but they are not really doing a good job at it. So what you propose is you are doing something the same, you are doing the same thing but better. In what aspects? So those can also be a really good differentiator. So yeah, and then after competitor analysis, you go, and when you have a really good differentiator, that is your unique value proposition, where you derive something that's very innovative and got novelty to it, something different, something groundbreaking. And after you get that unique value proposition, only then you derive the business model out of it. So if you get a really good UVP, unique value proposition, you have to think, how do you sell your product? Because ultimately, if you are going to solve some problem, you also have to make living out of it. So how do you get your resources or your sustenance doing that? So for example, you solve the problem. For example, car sharing app lah, right? Car sharing app like Grab, Uber, everything. So you have to know how do you gain revenue from that particular solution of yours. So the way Grab and Uber earn their revenue is via they taking commission from every Grab driver that you took. So that's small percentage, that small management fee is where they're going to put back in their pocket, and also serve as like OPEX. OPEX means operational expenditure, where they also use that particular revenue that they gain to operate the servers, to operate their workers. So those essentially the items that you really need to think of. And after you have find the way, what's the best way to sell your particular product or your solution, you have to also think of your go-to-market strategy. So go-to-market strategy is where you think or you wanted to brainstorm on how do you get adoption. So you have this particular solution for someone's problem. Now, how do you get someone to use it? So that's where go-to-market strategy is. So go-to-market strategy are basically how do you get people to use your product. So this can be in terms of marketing and your, for example, your engagement with your target market. So those are what go-to-market strategy is. So if you notice that this particular arrow where it points it points from business model to go to market strategy, and it also comes from target market, and the arrow pointing from target market to go to market strategy. This is the case because if you're going to like strategize on your go to market strategy, as in you are thinking of your marketing strategy, right? So if you're going to target certain demographic of people, you also have to think why, how, and why that particular marketing strategy will work for this particular target market. So let's say, for instance, you are targeting Gen Z. So what are the platform that Gen Z always use? What are the things that they are attracted to or gain their attention? So those are the things that you have to think of in your go-to-market strategy. And ultimately, this all comes and ended at the impact. So at impact is where you want to convince your judge and tell the judge that, hey, let's say let's say people does adopt your solution. They does download your apps, they use your products, and in the long term, what's the impact or the benefits as a whole that the ecosystem will gain. So and a good example is, let's say, like for this particular impact, it should serve and solve this particular problem statement as a whole. For instance, let's say we give like a example in the context of this particular hackathon, Putra Hack, where it's trying to solve the what they call it, shortage or in terms of agriculture. So the food security is the main problem or the main problem statement that you want to tackle off. So ultimately, this particular impact will solve this food security problem. So it has to be like a feedback loop. So this particular impact have to serve the problem statement back. So this is like a high level overview of what are the elements or the items that you really need to understand the significance of it. Because if you're not able to know what's the significance of each of these items, then it's really hard to convince the judge that this particular thing or the item that you are presenting is useful. Right. So those are what you have to really think and need to really understand throughout your hackathon journey. So if you are able to really gain the grasp of this particular thing that I'm presenting, then regardless the hackathon, you are able to adapt, because some hackathon they doesn't really emphasize on business perspective of that particular hackathon. It just focus on technical. You know that, okay, so since it doesn't really take into account a business logic, then why bother having a business model? So if you're able to really understand the fundamental of this, you are able to adapt to any hackathon that you join in the future. And okay, so for ideation is basically where you have to think and brainstorm. So some of us have frameworks that they always use to brainstorm. Some of us don't, but subconsciously, they probably will use this particular ideation framework, which I always use, which is design thinking process. So in design thinking process, the items are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So empathize is basically where you are trying to derive that particular pain points. So you are putting yourself inside the demographic of people who's facing that particular problem. So you identify, hey, these particular people experience A, experience problem B, experience problem C. So then you are able to identify the pain points, and you are able to define what are the problem statement that they are facing. Only then you are able to really ideate or brainstorm the idea out of those particular items that you have think. Okay, so after you have find all your and identify, brainstorm all your ideas, so and the particular items that make a really good solution, then you have to translate all your thoughts into a pitch deck. So pitch deck is basically your presentation slides that you wanted to pitch in front of the judges. So here are the example. I'm not going really detail. So I'm just going to put the important element or aspect inside the pitch deck. So the most important part is problem statement. It is really important, and in every hackathon, you should have it. This because if you are going to solve a problem, you have to define the problem so that the judges get the context of what are the problem that you are solving. So here are the basic description of problem statement that you can read off. Next item is a market segmentation. So just like I explained just now, so basically market segmentation are the demographic of people that you are trying to solve their problem. So it can be in these 4 aspects, whether it can be geographical segmentation, where are the people that faces a problem. For example, let's say a problem is heavy rains or high humidity. So people at the Europe don't really face that particular issue. It's only people in the Southeast Asia that face the issue. So those are what geographic segmentations are. And we also have a demographic segmentation, where it encapsulates socio-economic background. Also covers urban and non-urban. Urban people, for example, people living in KL, and non-urban, for example, people living in Hilda or outside of a big city. And there are also psychographic segmentation. For instance, people who enjoys healthy lifestyle, people who enjoys traveling. So those are the demographic. There's also count as a demographic of people. And lastly, there are also behavioral segmentation, where it covers like a behavioral aspect of segmentation. All right. Next is, of course, if you have a problem, then you have to present your solution features. So here's an example of the solution features deck, where just simply straightforward explain what are the features and the description of that particular feature of yours. You don't really have to. Okay, so just a quick tips. You don't really have to allocate a lot of time in this particular deck or slide. It's because you are going to show a demo that implement these particular features. So this particular slide is good when you want to give a judge a bit of heads up or context of what you are going to present later on in the demo. So again, don't really have to allocate a lot of time in this particular slide. I personally just allocate like max 12 seconds or 50 seconds just to give like a good context what my solutions are. Then further explaining will be done inside demonstration section. And next is your UVP. So I believe that 99.9% of the time, the problem that you tackle already has an existing solution to it. So UVP is basically, if you're going to tackle that particular problem, how are your solution is better from the other existing product or solutions in the market. So this is really important for you to put up front and tell the judge, saying that, hey, even though we are not the first to solve this particular problem, at least we serve it the best. And that's where we get the adoption. That's where we attract the customers. So those are the particular message or items that you really want to tell the judge. Okay, now we have covers what are the elements that you have to ID from, and how do you translate it into a deck. I would like to cover a really fun topic, which is building your MVP. So building your MVP is basically building a prototype from the elements or items that you have brainstormed from in previous phases. So basically how you code your front end, your back end, your DB. So these are the part that I would like just to give a tips, because I will not cover like end to end. I'm not gonna explain what are database, what are servers. So I'm just going to touch upon what you have to focus during your development phase. So during your development, it's really, really important for you to start small. Don't jump on a high horse thinking that you can finish a large project in the span of 2 days or 3 days and you're not going to sleep. So that's really, really bad thinking. So what you have to do is start small. So when you're small, you start to develop first feature. And if it works, then iteratively move forward to another features. And this is really important because if later on, if you do like straight away do like 4 or 5 features, then you get stuck. Then it's really hard for you to finish the product end to end. So what you have to do, or what you can do, is you start small and then do one feature first and move to another and iteratively improve on that. Second is innovation versus practicality, where you have to find the right balance between innovation and also reliability. And even though your idea is very unique and very, very creative, at the end of the day, is it practical? And I would like to give an example. Let's say you build a solution for car mechanics, right? So for example, you have your car or your motorcycle, you put in a workshop, and you wanted to have a way for the mechanics to tell you or ping you when your car is ready. So that's really already a good idea because it solves a lot of problem. So that, for example, you as a user or as a driver, you're able to you're able to have a better time management, knowing that, okay, if let's say my car is finished, I'm able to just see on the app itself. But it's not very practical for the workshop guy, because let's say if he does heavy services on car or vehicle, probably his hands are full of oil or of oil of the, what they call it, the black oil, like the gearbox oil and everything lah. So it's hard for them to update on the UI on the laptop because it will get the laptop dirty. So it's very impractical for the workshop. Yes, it does serve and solve a particular problem, but it's not practical. So the best rule of thumb is find a balance between these both elements. Lastly, you have to emphasize on UI UX. So why this important? Because if you want to have an adoption, if you want people to use your particular solution, you have to make it easier for them to understand what's the app's about. How do you go from this page to that page and ultimately solve their problem? So it's really, really important for you to keep it simple. And especially in the context of hackathon, where you only have 7 minutes, and out of the 7 minutes, you only allocate like 2 minutes for the demonstration itself. So within these 2 minutes, you want to show like the demonstration of your app to make Josh really understand how the workflow of your particular apps works and ultimately solve the particular problem. So those are the 3 key aspects of things that you have to consider when building the core feature itself. So just a tip. So these are the available prototyping tools that you can use during your hackathon. So it covers from front end, back end, and these are already segmented according to the difficulty. So let's say you are a beginner and you don't really have a strong foundation in coding. So you can just start in a beginner friendly tool, for example, Flutterflow, Figma, and then you can, for backend, especially AI, you can just hop on teachable machine. So this, and if let's say you are an expert or you have a really, really strong background in coding and development, you can just straight away use React, AWS, Fast API, or get your hands dirty with integrate with Arduino. So those are the possibility of tools that you able to use. And for development, it's more of a preference. There are VS Code, Cloud Code, Cursor, GitHub Copilot, and Anti-Gravity. So for me, if you ask, I think personally, I'm a Cloud Code guy. So that's just my preference. I have been using it for quite long. Never been in hackathon, but I like the way or the simplicity the Cloud Code provide. So I really recommend you to at least integrate some AI tools in your development process, because it will save your time a lot in both in development and debugging. So some tips when you want to, okay, so after you have brainstormed your idea, build a solution, develop a solution, build an MVP out of it. Now, how do you really pitch or present your idea to the judge in the most influencing, convincing, and impactful way for them to really understand your pitch? So I just include this particular meme that's the old school meme. So you just see that in a group position there are people with different roles. Some is the tukang pegang, tukang cerita, tukang pegang dua, and lain-lain. So in typical uni or schools presentation day is how it looks like. So just saying that in hackathons is not that far off, because in hackathon there will also be people lain-lain that doesn't involve in the pitching. Maybe they involve heavily during the development. For example, they are the dev or the coders. So they help to build the product end to end, the MVP from front end, back end, the DB up until finish. So they pass on to you to present it. So those can also be the particular pitching layout that you can opt for. So okay, now typically when I do pitching, this is the layout, common layout, where this is the slide projection, this is the presenter, these are all your teammates, and at least one of your teammates needs to handle the slide, because you are not going to give the organizing committee to handle your slide. It's quite a bad idea, because they doesn't know and at what point you want to switch from one slide to another. So it's going to waste a lot of that precious time. So in a lot of hackathon, they will give you like a roster for you to put your laptop, and then you can control your slide from there. Then it's in front of you is the judges, and in front of the judge usually there is a timer lah. So when you present your pitch, you are able to see the judges and the timer at the same time, so you can allocate and manage your more properly. And this is an example of the layout itself. So this is the example of the layout that I presented earlier. So he's the main presenter, and this particular line will sit behind it, and here are the judges. And it's also quite dynamic. Let's say in your team you have more than one presenter, for instance 2 or 3. So what you can do is just rotate, pass the mic to people who's sitting right beside this particular slides projection. So it doesn't have to only have one presenter. You can have more, and you can just change back and forth if you like, if that's the way you like. So at the end of the day, it's based on preference. And some of the layout that I always use, because in my team there are 3 presenters, and usually the one that handles the slides switching is the developer lah, who doesn't present, but he heavily involved in coding. So he's the one that handles the slides changing. So if for my case, since I already have three presenters, this is the layout that we opt for. So all we do is just pass the mic from one to another. And here's the judge sitting at the front of us. right? So really, really important aspect that you have to think of during pitching is, okay, pitching is usually 4 to 7 minutes, sometimes even less. Some hackathons or just give you like 3 minutes to pitch your idea. So the I get it, the time constraint is there, the time is very short, but it's really important for you to never exceed that particular minutes, because if you exceed it, automatically the committee will cut off the mic. So within, like, for example, let's say in the duration of 4 minutes, cut off, it already has been 3-minute marks and you don't even cover the most important aspect in your slides yet. So it's really important for you to adaptively move forward and fasten your pace to the most important slide. For example, the conclusion lah. Let's say there's a slide called conclusion where you wrap your ideas up and you conclude everything. So that is also important for you to cover. So if the cut-off time cuts you before that particular important slides, then then in terms of impact or convincing, you are not really convincing that particular judge really well, because you haven't got to the important slides yet. So that's the aspect that you have to come to take into account lah. And also it's really important for you to decide who's going to pitch. So it's something that you have to talk with your team. If you're people that can pitch, then you can just go with 2 or 3. So this depends on the time constraint. If let's say the cut-off time for presentation is 3 minutes, so then it will not make sense if you have like 5 presenters. So this can have pitching duration, because you want to save as much time as possible. And of course, like I mentioned, dedicate 1 person to it. And then next is, if you were to ask me, what are the hierarchy of the important elements of important slides that you have to present, okay, again, there is by 10 hackathons experience and being a judge and being mentor, I concluded that these are the hierarchy that goes from priority slides into really good to have. There's no bad slide to include. There will always be a good slide to include, because it makes your strong your pitching or your convincing better. But it takes time. It consumes time. So let's say like you have like a really, really good slide. Help convince the judge, but it took a lot of time just to make them understand. So it really goes away from the point that, hey, you want to convince the judge as much as possible within this particular time frame. So here goes. So for priority, this within the time frame or the time limit of your presentation, you have to present the problem statement, customer segmentation, your solution features, and your unique value proposition. So here are the priority. So these are the items that you will have to present to the judges regardless. And then another medium priority is the business model and competitor analysis. You can get away from not presenting this. Again, not recommended. But if you're going to include your business model and your competitor analysis, it will make your pitch even more convincing, because essentially you have you are essentially showing to the judges that your particular solution is much better than the existing solution right now. A business model makes it easier for them to understand. Okay, let's say you have a good product. How do you market it and get adoption? Adoption means you got people to use your particular product. So and then really good to have. So it's me is optional, but it really for me for me and my experience, I like to include this because it helps to make my pitch even make more sense in terms of, let's say I have a really good idea, I really have good business model. Now, right now I have like user. How do I increase it? How do I convince the judge that and gain profit out of it? So here is where the go-to-market strategy comes in. And impact is really good because for me, it serves like a conclusion where it shows that if my solution or the product that I pitch gain a lot of adoption, it ultimately solves this particular problem statement. You can get away with not having this in your slide, but for me personally, I think it left the fruit hanging because ultimately you present a solution, present everything from end to end, but you don't wrap everything up as in like in a proper conclusion way. So those are the things that you have to consider. So it's a preference based. Some people might have different hierarchy than mine. So, but for this sharing, I'm just going to show what I comfortable and what I go. And after you present, they will give the organizer of the hackathon will give time for the judges to give their question. For example, let's say your presentation time is 4 minutes. After your 4 minutes, you wrap things up. Then the next 3 minutes go to be located for Q&A session. So kind of, for me, I never truly able to predict what the judges question me, because ultimately judges are domain expert. Some domain expert means someone who's really experienced in the field, someone who's really credible and really know the problem that I'm solving really well, more than me. So, and it's sometimes I'm aware of. So in that case, the most important is if you cannot answer, you can let anyone in your team to help to answer for you. Let's say you are the team lead or you're a presenter, but then you don't really have the answer for that particular question the judges ask. So what you can do is you can just pass. If let's say you're dev, your developer or your code, some question where anyone in the team can answer, regardless if they presented or not. And it's really important for you to keep calm and understand the question really carefully. And inside your head, structure your answer first, only then speak or give your answer. Because essentially, if you're going to make the judge understand the answer for the question, you have, and I understand maybe you are in panic mode because a lot of eyes in the audience are watching you while you are in the big stage. So I get it. So sometimes people get nervous, but it's really important for you to keep your composure, keep calm and structure your answers so that in a way that the judges is able to digest your answers, really understand fully. And then when you answer a question, give further clarity. Don't repeat what you just said during the pitching because they hurt you. The reason why they wanted to ask a further question is because they want more clarity. So the thing that you have presented during your pitching is not enough to convince them. So that's why they wanted to have a further clarity from you. So what you can do is explain in another angle that perhaps that will make them understand you better. So those are my tips when you wanted to survive a Q&A section from the judges. All right, so I think I've covered the first part of the introduction to hackathon really good. And now, before we get into my hackathon tips, and we're going to look into like case study of previous hackathon. I open any question for the floor. If there's any, feel free to type in the chat box. If okay, if there's no question, organizer, is there any question from live? Moderators?
Okay, so if anyone have any question, you guys can put it in the chat box or Q&A function, and we will facilitate to Mr. Haziq. Okay.
Alright.
Okay, so while waiting for the participant to jot down any question, so I have one question for you, Mr. Haziq, actually. So
Yeah.
based on your experience in participating in many hackathons, what is like the one key tip that you would give to beginners who is joining their first hackathon?
My key tips will be, let's say you are joining your first hackathon. Let's say you have zero contacts or zero knowledge about hackathons in the first place, right? So one tip I will give is be more adventurous and be more proactive. It's really important because actually the resources are there. As in, there are people, let's say you have zero context of what hackathon and how to win a hackathon and what makes a really good page, what makes a really good product in the perspective of hackathon. So the answers are out there. Maybe your peers have joined hackathon before, maybe some of your seniors have joined hackathon before. So they have the answers for your question. So let's say you are joining your first hackathon, be more proactive, be more adventurous. Approach anyone that holds the answer for your particular question. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Back when I first started, I always look for a mentor. I started hackathon back when I was second year or third year in uni. So there's a senior that happens to be heavily involved in hackathon. So I always approach him. I ask him for feedback. Let's say like I have a pitch deck that I wanted for him to review. So I pass it to him, have his review, have his feedback. Then I do a lot of improvement based on that particular feedback. So, and it's really helpful because that also helps in your growth because it helps in because ultimately joining hackathon or joining any competitive event is all about learning and experimenting around. So you join any competition, whether you fail or you lose, you fail or you win or you lose is always a learning process or trying different new styles. As in like, yeah, you are trying different style, you are learning from your mistakes. So it's always a learning process of learning loop that you engage with. So if let's say you have someone that able to cut the time of your learning journey or learning loop, then why not? It saves time. So I would say be more proactive, as in, for example, you have don't limit don't limit things, as in don't limit things on the tiny boxes. Go explore more. For example, let's say you join a hackathon and then let's say you know someone from the industry, let's say someone from the industry that tackling this particular problem is on LinkedIn and you saw him. So why not be adventurous? Approach him that, hey, I'm someone who's trying to make a project from this learning project. Care if I get some feedback or anything. So just core message is also one of the thing that reflects the proactive aspect or adventurous aspect of that. So that will be my tips
So thank you. I'll take that. I need to be more proactive and active if I were to join a hackathon.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So for the next question, we have some question from Kintaro from the chat box. He asking us is, can we use Gemini for idea and development for this competition?
For this competition, if you are asking exactly or specifically for this particular competition, which is Putra Hack, I leave it the organizer to answer that. But generally, if you have any AI assistant, it's actually you have to know how to take advantage of that, right? Because if essentially like what I mentioned in previous slides, in pitching slides or pitching deck, there are elements of it. There are problem statements, there are customer ambition, everything, right? But you have to know the significance of it really, really well. Grasp the fundamentals of it. And if you know the fundamental and the concept of it really well, then you are able to use Gemini smartly. Why do I say that? Is because there's something I think everyone is familiar with the term called AI swap law, right? So you want to avoid AI swaps in your pitching. Why? Because ultimately you wanted to present something, a really, really good idea to the judges, right? So if you have like AI swaps, then it will mess up your process of convincing the judge. So let's say for instance, the judge is like 10 or 15 years in food security domain, right? He has been working his life working in that particular domain for a very long time. And then he knows the industry ins and out. So say he became one of the judges, and then you presented an a ChatGPT slides or ChatGPT points to him. Yes, he does understand it. It is correct, but is it factually correct, or does that point serve as a good items or element that help to convince him? That will be another story. So I would say that yes, we can have AI assistant, but it will be the best, and I will highly recommend you get to know the fundamentals really quick. Because let's say for example, in this you have a problem statement, then from that particular problem statement, you can just ask AI or ChatGPT, or you can just cloud your way right? You can just say from this particular problem statement, who are the people that is being affected, or the demographic of people that are being affected, and how I possibly can solve it. So what Cloud Gemini will do is they will give the answer for your prompt. So that's what is intention. Is the intention or expected thing they do, right? But what you can do on your end is basically okay from that particular points of output from ChatGPT or AI that they give, that actually verify it whether it's true or not. Let's say, for instance, a problems, yes, it does exist. The problem that the AI or the solution that AI give does helps, but it just covers 1% of the total people that actually face the issue. So what you want to do is a solution that's helps the entire people or the ecosystem itself, right? Those are the things that AI tends to be limited, if you get what I mean. Yeah, so basically the key takeaway is, yes, you can have an AI system, but don't 100% rely on it, because what you want to avoid is AI swap as much as you could. And yeah. So that will be my answer.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
thank
Havik,
you,
for
Mr.
your answer. I hope that answer
Okay.
your question, Kintaro.
Okay, so Mr. Aziz, there's actually one more question from our participants. From Isjat Uzai. So what's your biggest and hardest hackathon, if you don't mind sharing?
Mm, my hardest, right?
Mm.
My hardest. I think my hardest will be my first ever hackathon. Okay, I will cover lah. My hardest hackathon is another thing, and my biggest hackathon is another thing. So I think my hardest hackathon is first hackathon that I joined. So the first hackathon I joined is a IoT hackathon. So IoT is Internet of Things, where you try to develop an integrated system like a IoT, for example, ESP32, Arduino, and possibly Raspberry Pi. So this is the first hackathon that I ever joined. I never had any context of hackathon before. I doesn't know what hackathon is. I just joined for the sake of it, just for the fun of it. So when I initially joined, first I don't have any clue what hackathon is. Second, I'm coming from a CS, specifically in multimedia computing. I don't have any clue what Arduino is, and I don't even have any clue what IoT even covers. What's the potential use case for it? So learning, so like I said, it's a learning process. So when I join, it pushes me to learn uh those things in those particular aspects. So that at my first hackathon is where I learned that hey, IoT is actually something that really useful to solve this particular problem. And when it solves problem, it serves as a solution lah. There will always be use case for something that's really helpful. So it gives me further understanding of the capabilities of IoTs. And it makes me appreciate infrastructure and IoTs even more lah, I would say. So so that's the hardest because the learning curve is very high. And plus I also have to do research on what are hackathons is. And I would say the biggest hackathon that I ever won was say PayHack 2024. Why do I say that? Because PayHack 20, if I'm not mistaken, PayHack 25 this year, they only limit the participation for students, undergrads. I don't know if it covers masters and PhD, but it's undergrad. But during my time, it was free for all brawl. That means like people from industry can also participate. So I'm up against like people, for example, during the event, the table that sit beside me is, for example, like full stack developers and cloud solution architect from like a really, really big entity. So I was like, damn bro, I'm competing against this guy. I'm just like a big small fry and I'm competing against these particular big dudes. So I would say those are the particular mindset or mentality war that I faced during that particular big hackathon. But pro tip, like I said earlier, my tip of joining hackathon is always be proactive and be adventurous, right? So usually in hackathons, particularly they will provide mentors to guide you on site. So mentors can be people who have experience in that particular domain or people who's from industry related to that particular domain. So in PayHack 2024, there are multiple mentors that goes around the table. Of course, it's optional. You can call them if you want. It's optional. They don't force you. But what I do is I always go to them, ask them, hey, what's your perspective with my solution or my feature? That answers this particular problem statement that they provided. So that really helps lah because especially about finance, PayHack 24 is about open finance. Especially as someone who's doesn't really have a big understanding of from a finance background. I'm just a CS background. So it's really important for you to really know the problem that you are solving ins and out because ultimately you don't want to serve a solution that short CD. Short CD means like you are providing or serving something that no one uses, no one find useful, and ultimately it's going become stale. Stale mean like no one uses. So you want to avoid that scenario from happening. So let's say like if any particular domain you are not expert in, or you have lack of expertise in, seek the people that have better understanding or better grasp of the concept more than you. So that's what I mean by proactive. Because even yes, it's my tip for newcomers, but it's also a tip for even for experienced or seasonal hackathoners, because ultimately proactive is what drives you to perform more. So that will be so yeah, like that will be the biggest, I would think, the biggest stage, because I'm essentially competing against the industry giants.
So thank you, Mr. Aziz, for answering. I hope that helps Izjat in getting insight and understanding regarding the culture and environment of hackathon itself.
Next, we move on to the next question, which is we receive question from Sabrina Sarbaini, and the question is: as you have experience in winning big hackathons as champions, may I know how you define the specific problem to be solved? How do you find the domain expert for the particular field, like the background study or research? Would you like to share your thought on this, Mr. Aziz?
Yeah, sure. Um, for this particular question, it's actually asking like how do I derive a problem statement based on the particular domain, and how do I find those particular product experts or people related to that particular domain itself, right? So I like, okay, first before I do any, first and foremost, when I during a hackathon, if there's any domain, what I like to do is I want to find a status quo. Status quo means something that's happening right now. So for instance, let's say the domain is food security, right? So previous hackathon, I also evolved in the food security related domain. So what I did was I find the status quo. So the status quo for that particular domain was essentially the local rice was on shortage because it was back in 2024 2023. So during that time, the hot topic were rice. They are rice, but it's imported and tend to be more expensive. So those are the status quo that resonates with all of us. So because especially rice is all faced by Malaysian. If you live in Malaysia, those are the things that you face every day. And that's why I find that, and it's really important for you to find something that resonates with everyone, because especially the judges are from Malaysia, right? So you have to find like a middle ground, something that can connect the judges to you, a topic or solution that can really resonate not only with you but the judges as well. So I decided to go with rice or paddy oriented solution, because during that time the hot topic was local rice shortage. And then for the product expert or people strong in the domain, I would say that actually it's through connections. For example, during my hack that I joined, where it's related to rice or food security, I have a friend at my college who was studying forgot what's the course, Bachelor in Education, Agriculture Science. So that's where I always keep in touch with him. I ask him for feedback, generally asking, hey, there's a project that I'm doing that tackling this problem, problem A, problem B, problem C, and I'm providing a solution for solution A, B, C. In your opinion, does that answer this particular problem? So he gave his feedback. I took note of his feedback and improve on it. So you don't really, for example, for a really, really complex domain, you don't really have to have like a PhD level or somewhere like 10, 15 years in the industry. Someone who's actually familiar with that particular domain is already enough. Because actually hackathons are conceptual. You are basically conceptually building a product and conceptually selling it to the market and convince the judge, hey, this is the best conceptual product for this particular use case, right? So it doesn't hurt unless if you were going to ship your product into an actual production, actually make a business of it, then it's really important for you to get, like, for example, people in 15 years in that particular domain. But for hackathon, just someone who's already familiar and have a good foundation on that particular domain is enough. And to answer your question is, yes, I do read research paper, especially in topics that I don't know. For example, like I mentioned, the PADI oriented solution that I made for one of my hackathon. I actually did read research paper. I did read like a report from I forgot what's the entity, but it's Kementerian Agriculture, if I'm not mistaken. So those are the things that you have to do research on, because essentially, even though it's conceptual, it must have to work out, or it must make sense to everyone. So that's why you have to back your solution. For example, you derive a pain points, and from that pain points, you derive a problem statement. So those particular things that you derive have to be backed by something that's realistic. That's why, for example, the PADI problem that I faced, that I did for my hackathons, what I did is I derive from credible sources. Actually, yeah, this particular topic, this particular question can be answered better in my next session, I would say. So just to give you a bit of context, but it will be fully answered in the next session.
Thank you, Mr. Haziq, for explaining how to identify the right problem and find domain expert for research in hackathon. I hope they answer your question, Sabrina.
Okay, so next, let's have one last question before we move on to the next session by Mr. Haziq. So we have a question from Amar. It's a very straightforward question. Did you use any APIs in previous hackathons?
Yes, I did. I did use API, and all the API that I use are public APIs. Public APIs that is available from, if I'm not mistaken, data.gov. But there they provide the kinds of publicly available data set and APIs that you can use. And other than that, there are also like a public repo on GitHub that provide lists of available free APIs that you can also use, from weather API, financial API. So those are the things that you can use. But for, let's say, like for instance, you are, let's say for instance, what you are actually tackling is probably really niche, in sense of there's no data for that yet. So what you can do is you can just do a mock data set. You can build your own data set. Of course, you have to know how to make it as realistically as possible. But essentially, like I mentioned, hackathons are conceptual. So conceptually, you build something. So when you conceptually build something, you can, of course, it's acceptable to use mock data set. So you can go, for example, Kaggle. Kaggle, I think, is a clean and real data set, but they also need data set that you can synthesize yourself. So that's also possible.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Haziq. I hope that answers your question, Amar. So thank you again, Mr. Haziq, for answering all the questions from our participant. Now I will pass the stage to you for your second session. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you again, moderators. So, okay, next I will cover hackathon tips of 101, where we will provide like a case studies for example, a domain or problem statement from my previous hackathon that I still saved. Then we're going to dissect it together and derive what the solution from that particular problem statement together. So as mentioned earlier, I would like to restate again the Green Hackathon. These are the typical flows where it goes from ideation, I try to ideate your idea, thinking of brainstorming. Then from there you develop, and between this process, there's always a feedback loop where you probably get a feedback from a mentor, or you suddenly realize that hey, actually I can do better. My solution can have implement something that can cater the solution better compared to my previous features. So these are the feedback loops, which is the iteratively make improvement of your product. Then from developing your idea, you go to showcasing, which is your pitching your idea to judges. So my tips 101, okay, so we have covered basics end to end of hackathon, ideating, building, and also presenting. So I would like to share more about the tips and how do you generally strategize your team or your solution to make the most impact out of it. So first and foremost, okay, before you tackle the problem, you already have a team, right? You probably already have a team. Some don't, and they get paired out with random people from that also register. But most of the time, people tend to already have a team. So when you have a team, each team already have their role or the thing that they are in charge of, ideally. So you want to distribute tasks as the most efficient as possible. So here are from my own experience and from my own perspective, I think this is the team composition that makes building a hackathon pitch and hackathon solution MVPs better and most efficient. So let's say you have 3 people, and just for the sake of it, let's say one of the 2 guys in your team is non-technical person. So just to give like a background, technical is someone that can code or someone who's good at building stuff. So for example, someone who's good at building front end mobile application, or example integrated system, for example Arduino and Raspberry Pi, for instance. So those what you call technical person. And non-tech is basically people who's not non-technical lah. Non-technical can be someone who's maybe he's not into coding or he doesn't have a technical background, but he's a expert. For example, let's say in this particular hackathon for security, maybe perhaps he's a bachelor in agriculture science and he's really good in that particular domain. So or maybe he's someone with business background. So essentially when there's a problem, you have to solve it and you have to market or make a business plan out of it. So those are probably something technical person is not really good at, because technical person is mainly their brains, like if given a problem or given like a technical problem, like for example math question, they can able to solve it. But in a real world perspective, I think that business people able to derive the problems back into a better use case, better than particular developer lah. So in the case where you have 3 people, 1 non-tech and 2 technical, the non-tech can be the business and the technical can be the developer. And I would recommend if one of the particular technical people to become a PM. PM means product manager. So essentially this particular product manager, they translate that business requirement from the business guy into a technical requirement that the developer able to understand and digest and do action out of it. So it helps in terms of aligning the business values with the technical or MVP values are. So But of course, it's up to your preference. It can be business dev. It can be business PM dev also. But you don't really have to worry about it because usually three people a team of 3 people is able to coordinate well because there's like uh a bit less headcount. But in the case of let's say 6 to 7 people in a team, that is really hard to align and coordinate everybody's deliverables. So that's why you have to have someone that aligns everything up. And let's say if you have 4 people in a team, and usually that's where I always go for. And hypothetically, let's say one out of 4 is non-technical and the rest are technical. So I think the best layout or the best composition will be one focus on business, one product manager, and 2 devs. And we will look at how they tackle this together. So yeah. So let's go with like a case study and simulation. So let's say actually this particular case study and the theme this particular problem statement is the same as the Putra hack. So I intentionally picked this one so that it can relate with the participant more. So if you can read this is the case study from one of my hackathon, which is green and crop management. We're not going to read the whole thing, but we can just take the key takeaways. Basically, this particular case study is focusing on simplification of crop management processes, where let's say you have a crop, then how do you manage it properly? And how do you integrate like a technology and make it accessible to everyone? And these are the other element, like for example, sustainable efficient crop production and also empowerment through education. So these are the thing or the aspects that it asks you to cover under the particular case study. All right, so before you jump the wagon and start straight away build your MVP, first thing is you always have to ideate and brainstorm from it. So I mentioned just now, this design thinking process is a framework that you can choose. I'm not forcefully or saying this is template for you to use. It's optional. There are tons of framework, but this is the one that I find that is simple enough and it's easy enough to use. Which is first is to empathize. Empathize means you put yourself in the shoes of the people that facing the problem. For instance, the crop management is basically something that small farmer or medium-sized farmer face, right? So you putting yourself into their shoes and try to resonate with them. Okay, if I were a small farmer, what will be things that I find a drag or pain points? Then after you have defined your pain points, only then you define the problem statement and idea from it, right? So let's say the pain points for a small farmer is for food security is I just picked something from some article from Google saying that the reason why farmers is facing an issue in crop management is because their pain point is they have low productivity and their production cost is really high, right? So these are their pain points. And these are picked from credible sources, which is FFTC Agriculture Policy Platform. So these are credible. So again, you can use AI, but it will be good if your particular point is backed by credible sources. It can be article, can be from research paper, it can be from even news. So those are the things that backs and makes your particular points even stronger. Okay, so after you have these particular pain points, don't just stop here and move forward with building your solution. Don't just stop here. Why? Because you wanted your solution to address the core problem. What I mean by core problem is something that's the problems that keep occurring, and those are what result in low productivity and higher production costs. What I mean is that you have to ask yourself, okay, so here's are the pain point for farmers. They have low productivity and higher production costs. Why? What is the case? Why the production cost for a crop is higher, right? So those are the questions that you have to derive from. So when you do your research and ask yourself why, and you finally go through internet and you got your answers out. So the reason why their pain point is low productivity is because usually small farmers have lack access to modern farming technology. So you did Google and you found this reason from low productivity because they lack access to modern farming technology, right? Especially in Malaysia. And another reason why the crop management has low productivity is because it's the aging workforce. And you check the article saying that typically the yield of a farm is very small because the people or the workforce that work on that farm is typically from people with older demographic, right? So that's what slows things down lah. Compared to people who's younger and have more energy, aging workforce is what makes the productivity low. And then for high production cost, why? Ask yourself why that's the case. And then you did a quick Google search and found out the reason why the production cost is higher is because people in the industry tends to look at money more than long term, right? So people tends to see, hey, palm oil, kelapa sawit, it has more yield and more ROI compared to other crops like paddy, carrots, potato. So they think that palm oil is more, they give more return, so they will focus on that more. And in result, when people invest more on palm oil, there will be less land for people to actually grow agri-food. So more palm oil plantation, less land for paddy, for instance. So those are what causing it the production cost is high. And for me, it's always a iterative process lah. You can just try to search more lah. Okay, so for instance, aging workforce, why that's the case? You can just check. Maybe you can look up in a quick Google search. Okay, what are the 10 behavior of millennials or the younger generation? So you look up and identify that the younger generation tends to engage in a industry where you can straight away get money, because essentially farming is basically you plant the crops and you wait for a long time frame, only then you get the returns. So you look at the Google, the behavior of younger generation, they tend to want money as quickly as possible. So that's why aging workforce is the only older people works in a agriculture related domain. So always ask yourself why, so that you can derive and you're able to find the core problem or the core issues that causing this particular problem. So for this particular simulation, I'm just going to stop at this particular points or elements. So we are able to derive that the core problem is actually not low productivity, but it's actually it's actually more workload and more manual labor involved, and which tends a lot of younger generation to avoid this particular industry. And also higher capital stack is the thing, right? So people doing plantation, it requires a heavy entry point or heavy capital to start with. So after you have know that here are the 3 core problems, then you talk to your team, you try to idea, okay, brainstorm how do we solve this particular issue. And then, so let's say here's the process lah. So let's say you have the core, so here's basically the flow of from core problem, and then you solving it, and then ideating that solution. So for instance, let's say you have identified your core problem, then it is where you actually solve it. So how do you solve higher capital start? For example, by enabling by lowering the entry lah. Basically, so if let's say people want to start in farming, you make that accessible and more inclusive in terms of they don't really need X amount of money. They can start with much lower, almost half or just a small percentage from that X amount of money. So how you solve it is by lowering the entry cost. And then if the core problem is more workload and more manual labor, so the way you solve it is to automate some redundant workloads, something that's especially something recurring, like example like watering is a process by right or by hook or by crook. You always have to plant or water the plant at this exact time, at this exact hour. So those can be something that automated lah. And third is majority workers are from older demographic. So how will you solve it is, for instance, you have to make it more attractive for younger generation to join that particular industry. So those are how you solve it. But materializing your idea is something else. So you have the solution, but how do you like materialize your particular solution into something physical, something that actually customer facing or shop facing? So what I can think of basically if the problem is if the solution is to lower the entry, because there's so much land required involved in vertical farming, where it consumes less land compared to normal traditional farming. So this can be the first materialized physical solution for this particular answers. And then next is automate some redundant workloads. So for the automations, we can automate some redundant workloads by, of course, we can have like an IoT device to water your plants, give fertilizer or insect repellents. So those are the reoccurring process or workloads that you are able to automate. So less burden, less work is always good for the farmer. So less burden for them. And next is for this particular solution is attract young generation. So this actually is more marketing, right? So for thirdly, you can have making an app to attract younger generation. And for instance, here there's like a Malaysian Gen Z engineer that builds his own app to manage the crop. So it makes it more shiny, more attractive for younger generation to say, hey, look, I built an app. I know this particular plantation agriculture is something like only typically old people involved. But look, I'm modernizing it and make it shinier, and I earn from that. So those are the things that can attract younger generation. So these are the key steps on how do you from finding the core problem into materializing of your solution into a physical or in something that can be interactable. Yeah, so for this hackathon, for this demonstration or for this simulation, just make a dummy solution or dummy apps for it lah, dummy product for it. So I propose it to be a Boleh Tanam. It's a vertical farming app, and you are able to manage everything via mobile, and you have a dashboard to monitor like historical data of the sensors or touch points that you want. Typically, a farmer want to always know. So here's like some illustration to demonstrate how it works. And then for business model, I opt for SaaS, which is software as a service, plus razor blade model. So if you guys are not familiar with razor blade model, it's basically pricing strategy where the initial product is like at a very heavy discounted price, but then the price of the refills or the return for that particular product is way higher, so that you are making that entry point for buying your product low, but then the cost of operating or the the large time frame of using your product is much more expensive, and that's where you get revenue of it. So one example is of course razor blade lah, right? So another example that we all can relate with is printer. So if you notice, printers are damn cheap. It's really cheap, right? It costs like 200, 250, even 100, right? But then if you buy it and actually buy the ink, it costs like 50, 100 ringgit, 100, sometimes 150 for the ink price, that can just print like 100 pages, not even 1,000, 100 pages. So if you calculate or sum your total cost of spending on printer itself, cost you heavily on the ink itself. So that's how razor blade model works out. So essentially, this is how we tackle the issue where it has farming or agriculture have a high entry point. So we lower the entry point, but at the end of the day, we as a business itself have to make money somehow and to sustain ourselves so that we can serve the farmers better. So that's how we make revenue to sustain ourselves as well. So it's like a win-win situation for the farmers lah. So here's the example of the SaaS pricing model. So for hypothetically, I'm not recommending you to put zero, but just for the sake of simulation, I just put it zero monthly, $0 monthly, where it includes light sensor, water sensor, real-time dashboard, and basic analytics. So the entry point is much lower, so almost to none because it's essentially free. But let's say they want to grow or they want to scale up their yield or their process. So this is where another pricing models come in, where you can use the free tier, but if you want to unlock more possibility to your farm, you can unlock this $300 per month plan, where it gives you so many things, and it even gives you like a free water dispenser for you to automate your process. And this is where the razor blade pricing business model comes in, where for example, yes, the entry point is low, $300, but the add-ons are basically you increase the price from the traditional original pricing into something that's you can sustain yourself. So those are basically razor blade model lah. So that's what I'm opting for. Of course, it's your freedom to find what's the business model that you think most suitable for this particular solution. I'm just giving you what I think is for this particular use cases, for this particular problem. I think this particular business model it fits better lah. And then marketing strategy, since we are targeting younger generation, and so we have to make our marketing or our go-to-market strategy suits our demographic of people that we target. Since we're targeting younger generation, this is where we go through a channel, for example, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. So those are the particular channel that the generation tends to spend most of their time at. And then in terms of marketing, the way you wanted to market your product is something to have like something like since younger generation tends to live in the moment and in shorter division time frame. So what you can do is you can make some posting something like this, backyard millionaire. So as a younger generation, that captivates my attention. Like, wow, backyard millionaire. I can make money out of my backyard instantly, right? So those are the things that how you can catch the attention of your intended target market or target demographic. Yeah. And then you can make the posting to be more like a modern, stylish, something like this. So those can be your marketing strategy or your go-to-market. Next, we have after prototyping and test, right? So in design thinking process, because now we have covered how do we derive pain points, and how do we materialize something physical that solve the pain points that the user is facing. So those are the empathize, define, and ideate process. Now we want to move forward with prototyping and test process, where we actually building our MVP or building our prototype. So again, before we move to building stuff, it's really important for you to align the requirements and the business logic with your entire team, right? Why? Because like I said, a lot of developers, even professional one, tends to have tends not to care. I mean, like, it's because there are a lot of people from technical backgrounds, they do mindset where I just want to build things, give me the requirements, what I have to build, and I'm going to build it regardless. So they don't really have a good context of the business requirements. So it's really important for you to align the business requirement with the developer teams, so that you, at the end of the day, you can able to have like a MVP that's really answer or the business requirement. Like I say, you don't want to build a product that's short needy, something that don't actually tackle that particular problem. It's just there, it's just sitting there and no one uses it. So we don't want that to happen. So the particular flow or the streaming of the requirement is as below lah, I would say. So from some of the business, he's the one that derive the business logic. Okay, so let's say we have this particular issue. How do we address that particular issue and pay points? And after he has this business guy has ideated the solution, he turns it into a business requirement. So let's say, let's just look at this linear horizontal flow right here first. So let's say this business guy have a requirement saying that he wants the user to have a dashboard and easily view the sensor data anytime, anywhere. So those are business, sorry. This is the business requirement. After that, he pass that to PM. So like I mentioned, PM or product manager is what aligns everything. He turns a business requirement into a technical requirement, so that deaf people can easily understand. So essentially, the PM takes this particular business requirement and translate it into technical requirement. For example, for this particular requirement for dashboard, he said to the dev team, okay, since we want to have a dashboard, we should have like a ESP32 module and a sensor to send the data to cloud. And from when the data is at cloud, we can have a backend to query that data to from the database into a front end that for that user can access. So it translates this particular vague requirements into something that someone in technical background can understand lah, right? So he passed this requirement to dev, and when this requirement is at the developer, they can code and develop based on this particular requirement. And of course, since hackathons are usually limited to 4 people, it's really important that everyone does their job and support each other lah, right? So if let's say like PM, product manager, this is not your only role, right? You can help in other way. Since PM is usually someone with technical background, they can help with designing the UI UX in Figma, and then or iteratively check if the MVP aligns with business requirement. And also they can also optionally, if they are a technical person, they can help to code also lah. We want to minimize, or let's say we want to distribute the workload as efficiently and as optimized as much as possible. So these are the key things that they engage with. And occasionally the business guy occasionally review the prototype to check to verify whether that particular prototype or MVP aligns with his business requirements. So these are the flow or the streaming of the requirements, and these are how the relationship or the interaction between particular role with the MVP. And remember, and like I say, earlier, during the development, it's always a feedback loop where sometimes you take a step back and think, hey, this actually doesn't solve the issue. There are other ways that can solve the issue better. So it's always an iterative process and going back and forth. And then, okay, so after building, of course, you are going to pitch to the judges. So during pitching, usually the presenters are the business people and the PMs. And not to say that the dev team doesn't have to present. I mean, optionally, they can. There's no issue with that. But if you're going to let's say 2 days hackathon where you have to put an all-nighter, right? So everyone is not sleeping. So to strategize is better. You will want the dev is to be the one that's not sleeping, because they can code the MVP and develop the MVP all night. So during this time, the business PM can have like a short power nap, probably like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and then the next morning, only then these particular people have better rest compared to that can present. Why do I say that is because, like, from my experience of hackathon, when you put an all-nighter, then you present, your brain tends to be really foggy, and sometimes you lose words. So since you have like a short time frame of, like, let's say 4 minutes, let's say you spend a lot of time with like filler words, like for example those you might not view it as a significant thing, but during that 4 minutes, it takes a lot of time already. So that's why it's really important for that particular pitch to be as smooth as much as possible. Get your point straight to the judges. Don't waste time using filler words. And then suddenly you forgot your choice of word. You don't know what word to describe on what the points that you want to elaborate on. So that also can take and consumes time. So ideally, the strategy is the dev code all night. The business and the PM, they does sleep, but they don't sleep the entire night lah. They maybe like take like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, then they wake up and help where and covers things that are still missing. So those will be my strategy or go-to the hackathons. But yeah, this for my case, that's only eligible for all-nighter hackathons where the brain power really matters. So yeah, so my tips during pitching will be, before you start pitching, tell a story, right? Because for example, if you put yourself in a judge's shoes, they evaluated and they share a lot of solution from the other teams. So the first team tell a story about the first team give a solution of a problem A. The next team give a problem or address a solution problem for problem B. So it's like different kind of stuff, right? So you want judges to already have good context of what problem that you are solving and have a good grasp of understanding what you are actually solving, right? So to tell a story is basically you make like a 1 or 2 liner for this particular problem, so that it gives a good context to the judges. For example, let's say you were for our Boleh Tanam is basically like a crop management app, right? So you can give like a one or 2 liner saying that Ahmad is a paddy farmer. He faced a lot of issue managing his crop farm because he lacks the productivity and the manpower to do so. And then you straight up shows the slide introducing Boleh Tanam, a vertical farming solution that addresses your problem A, problem B, problem C. So that's how you want to capture the attention of the judges. That's number one. And number two is to give a good context of your solution to the judges. Next is always have and memorize your script. So you don't want to straight away how do I put it? Don't have any script and just straight away pitch, right? Because in the span of 3 or 4 hours, you tend to add something or forgot some of your key points. So what you want to do is you write a script, memorize it, and do tons of dry runs as simulation with your entire team. So let's say you have already prepared a script, memorize it end to end. Then before the actual pitching, do like a simulation. And this is really important because it also helps the people that control the slides, the laptop, to coordinate where at what point they should move the slides to. So it helps to save time better, and it helps to makes the judges understand your pitching more clearer. And then the last tip is minimize wording during pitching. Why do I see that? It's because minimizing wording as in the word that came outside from your mouth as you speak. This is because during the pitch deck, in the pitch deck itself, you already have a lot of wording. So you don't want to read the same thing. And judges, since the slide projection is in front of judges, they can read it by themselves. What you want to do is, first, don't read from the slide, but you have to elaborate out of it. Give examples, change to layman's terms, explain clearer and give more clarity. So that's what you should aim for. Don't read the slide one to one, but give more clarity to it. And yeah, for example, I can give you example. For example, for this slide right here. For example, this social features, right? So these social features, there are 3 features. These are the name of the features, and these are the description, right? So what you can do is you can say introducing our solution. Our solution is able to display a dashboard that helps people to understand the current situation. So basically, I'm summarizing everything, every wording into one-liner. So I repeat again. So introducing our solution that helps to display to user the dashboard of the current status quo or event happening into a digestible way. And number 2 is a customer sentiment index that able to predict what will happen in the market in the long run. And third is an automated creation that helps to turn things into an actionable insights. So you don't have to, okay, so that's how I will do it, because you don't want to read the game, you don't want to read everything one to one from one until the end. What you want to do is like give like a 1 or 2 lines that's able to helps the judges understand the whole thing. And meanwhile, they hear what you are, how you describe, they can read it. So they can do it concurrently. Yeah. So I think that's all from all the tips that I have for you guys today for the webinar. I would like to end with a saying that, or a motto that I always live: learning counts, win our bonuses. So it's really, so joining hackathon does provide some opportunity for you to earn money or earn the like bragging point of saying, hey, I won this hackathon, right? But at the end of the day, what you learn from that hackathon and apply that what you have learned in your everyday task or everyday job is what matters, because that's what builds you as an individual. That's what builds you as a business person. That's what builds you as an engineer. So those are the key points or key takeaways that I would like you to have or to really, really resonate with you guys today. So I would like to thanks to extend a deep gratitude to the organizing team for inviting me as a speaker for today's webinar. So if you guys have any further question, you can just DM me on LinkedIn. Feel free to do so. So yeah, I pass to our great moderators.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Azik, for the insightful and very inspiring sharing. So we truly appreciate the valuable knowledge and experiences that you have shared with us today. So we will now open the floor again for Q&A session. So participant, you may raise your virtual hand if you wish to ask a question or interact directly with our guests. Or you can also type your question on the Q&A function. Okay. Okay, so we will give them some time to think of a question. So meanwhile, I have one question for you, Mr. Azik. So you already shared your tips for a beginner joining a hackathon for the first time. But now, based on your experience joining many hackathon, what are some common mistakes that participants usually make during a hackathon? And how can they actually avoid doing them?
All right. So I would say that a really, really common mistake, even from, and this mistake is not prominent to beginners, but it's more prominent at the seasonal or the competitive level, where I can see that, for example, they tend to think that their solution is the best. And of course, when you build something, you tend to have like a sentiment attachment to that particular product, right? Particular prototype that you have built, because you have spent day and night, sweats and tears building it. So I get it. You spend a lot of effort building it. But let's say like a mentor came to you saying that and giving feedback, saying that, hey, I get that you, your here's your product, your solution, but it doesn't really tackle the problem statement at all. So what happens is that the person tend to stick with his own like mindset or his own thinking that, hey, this particular guy doesn't know what he think about. I have joined a lot of hackathon. I know what I'm doing. I know this is the best, and they end up losing. Why? Because he doesn't really he stuck in his mind or his own like his own belief that this particular product is the best or that the best answer for that particular problem statement. So he's actually committed one of the mistake that I ask everyone to avoid is which is short needy. So like I say, don't build some, and this even goes during even to professional phases in your life as well. If you build some, so even assignment or when you are in industry, it is important for you not to build something that's short needy. I say like you build something that's not actually solve or answer the the issues that you are tackling, but you are building something just out of your belief, thinking that yeah, yeah, guys, we'll come back to you. So you want to avoid short needy as much as possible because what you build, and you have to put in your belief as well. You build something to serve people, right? To serve people, regardless hackathons or doing your professional pieces in life later. So you are building something to serve people. So it's really important for you to get feedback from those particular people that you serve, whether it solve your problem or not. Or not, like I said, it's become a solution that you think that it solved their problem, but it's actually not. So after you finish everything, you're done, you serve it to them and they don't use it. And it's something that becomes stale, uh, spoiled, by no one uses it. You don't want that to happen. So for beginners, they tend to absorb as much feedback as possible. But for seasonal hackathoners or competitive one, I can see that they start with the idea of saying that, hey, this is the best solution. This is the solution that I built, and this is the best that tackle the issue. Regardless whether you say or not, I'm going to stick to the idea. So it's like stubborn mentality is what drive them out. So always keep your mind. You build something to serve to people. So it's really important for you to get feedback from that particular people that you are serving. So I hope that answers your question. I heard that someone raises their hand just now.
So thank you for your insight, Mr. Haziq. I take it that we
Okay, so next we moving on to the next question from Ijat Uzai again. It seems like that he really enjoying this session because he already asked 2 questions. So the next question is, what is your advice for students who scared to join their first ever hackathon? Okay, what will you think about this, Mr. Haziq?
I think that you don't have to be scared of joining the hackathon because you got nothing to lose, right? Because we have never joined the hackathon before. So if you are delving into a hackathon scene for the first time, then you got nothing to lose, regardless if you win or not. So it helps you to perform better, to be honest. But when I joined the hackathon, I always think of, okay, let's say even to this day I'm planning to join a hackathon with some of my peers or some of my friends. I also like there's some thoughts behind my mind that says, hey, you already built a good reputation. What if you join and you lose? Right. So there's like intrusive thoughts behind my mind that become like a barrier for me to join that particular hackathon. Right. So that's why my friction of joining hackathon comes in lah. But if you were the first one to ever join hackathon, it's actually easier for you to join or to get used to, because there's less friction. Plus maybe you plus there are a lot of benefit of joining one lah. So even let's say if you lose, you lose nothing, because because at the end of the day, joining hackathon is actually a learning process. You join there, gain experience, connect with people that also join the other bright minds. I cannot emphasize enough. Hackathon is where you compete in terms of programming skills, right? So one of the skills that required is programming. So you are joining with someone that's also pushes themselves out of their comfort box or out of their comfort circle to proactively improve themselves. So it's like a circle in hackathons. Is basically like a circle of bright and really really motivating minds that you are surrounded with. So those are a good aspect of joining hackathon. So there's no reason for you to be scared. Maybe you are scared because you never used to build something end to end, or you never pitch in front of a judge or in front of a large audience before, and it's acceptable. And it's acceptable because you never done so, right? So at what point you have to ask yourself, so since I'm not never done this before, why not try it now? Why not get used to it now? So even the people that's already good at presenting, at some point they never present before. Someone who's really good developer, who's a really really talented engineer, um, at what point they never been before. So that's the first step that they they took them that makes them and leads to they are now. So don't be afraid. Just go, uh, just go. Take a leap of faith. I would say, take a leap of faith and trust the process. I would say. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz, for the insightful answer. So next, let's move on to the next question.
Okay, so we have a question from Eswaran. How relevant is joining hackathon to real working world? You might want to
Mm,
share your insight.
mm, the relevancy, I mean, mm, it's based on who do you ask, right? And it's also depend on who or what feels that particular person asking is that right. So if you ask me as someone who's in technical field, as in terms of uh doing technical stuff for his full-time job, I would say that the relevantness is it helps to make yourself more adaptable to like a framework or things that you doesn't know. What do I say is because that, okay, let's say in uni, for example, the web application frameworks that you are used or introduced to are PHP, basic SQL, MySQL, MySQL, etc., etc. So those are the basic things. But you also have to realize that the worlds are changing, the worlds are evolving. There are many more open source tools that are being developed and being used in the industrial field. So if you join the hackathon, you're able, it's like a push factor for you to build a project out of these modern technology stacks or modern frameworks, so that if even if my field, for example, I'm a data engineer, I don't really code front end. I'm just more heavily involved in the back end side of things. But it helps me to shape my mind, as in, let's say a new framework comes, what how do I adapt to it? How do I actually use it? And what are the potential use case that benefits me and my team? So those are the elements that you have to that help me to shape my mentality, that helps me in my professional field. That's number one. And number two, like I mentioned, so regardless of thing, hackathon is where, for me, hackathon is the art of convincing a judge, saying that probably out of 100 teams that join this hackathon, my my solution is the best that tackle this particular domain or particular problem statement. So that's where the skills of not being shocked really comes in last. For example, you really understand the problem inside, ins and out. You really get a good grasp of the conceptual, the core, the actual core problem out of it. So it helps you it helps and train your mind to actually asking yourself, okay, so here's a problem, why is happening, and why, and it's like a nested why, right? So why this happen and why this happen again. So it helps you to shape your mind as a, for example, as an engineer, to fix the core issue at the problem at the core itself, rather than just fix the surface issue and actually serve it to the people, regardless to the end user or to your entire team. So you are basically training your mind to solve a problem that's actually the real problem, rather than just fixing the what they call it, the surface problem. And it trains you to align your particular solution with the stakeholders, the people that use your solution. So in industry, yes, actually industry, I would like also to to add that industry, from my experience, that they don't really care. Not they don't really care lah. I would say they do take into account your technical skills, but they think that your soft skill comes more. Soft skills, what do I mean by soft skill is what I just explained just now lah. The ability or the mindset to as a problem solver, to solve the core problem, rather than fixing the surface or uh the result of the core problem itself. What do you call it? The symptom itself. So rather than fixing the symptom, you are actually solving the problem at the core level itself. So those are my perspective.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Aziz. I hope that answers your question, Eswaran. So I'll pass to Elinda.
All right, thank you, Lan. So next we move on to the next question from Nur Danish. The question sounds like, how important is the role of business in a team? Maybe Mr. Haziq can share some insight from your experience, maybe?
Okay, for the significance of business, I mean, it also depends on which hackathon that you join lah. If, for example, let's say I've joined a technical hackathon before where they don't care about business, business. They just care about how you how do you integrate certain frameworks or certain tools into bringing something that's impactful. So in terms of business, as in like how do you market your product, your business model, everything they don't care about. But business doesn't just encapsulate or just doesn't just cover those particular aspects. It also covers in what I mean by business, it is also covers in terms of aligning the impact in the real world, right? So that's what I also mean by business perspective lah. So in terms of hackathon, a business guy usually someone's that from that particular problem statement he curated or he derived the pain points, he identified the pain points, or he identified the what they call it, the solution out of it lah. I mean, like, both developers and business person are equally important, but why I say that the significance of someone who's business oriented is by they think in different angle compared to the technical people, because technical people they tend to, there's a problem, they fix it, they just fix the system itself. But for business, they look at the different aspect or different angles of the problem issue. So me personally, I during my hackathon things, my hackathon, even now, even currently I'm working in the technical field. But previously during I start my hackathon, I was the one with the least technical knowledge. So out of four people, those three people are more technical oriented. So what I did is, okay, I can code, but they are better at it. So what I did is I let them do what they are good at, and I tackle the problem that they less good at, but I'm better at. So that's where, I mean, like, it depends who decide the role, who's business or technical. So it dynamically what if I dynamically subjects to people who are in your team. But generally business people are the ones that derive the core problem and actually pass it to the developers as a something that you have to do. I hope that's answered your question.
Okay, so thank you very much for the insightful answer, Mr. Aziz. Since there are no more questions, we will proceed to the closing ceremony. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the engaging question and discussion from everyone today. We truly appreciate your participation. And thank you to Mr. Haziq for the insightful and inspiring sharing. We truly appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and knowledge with us today. We would like also to thank to all the organizing committee from COMSIL and MPP UPM 2025-2026, as well as all participants for joining us and actively participating in this webinar. We hope today's session has given you valuable knowledge and inspiration to participate confidently in hackathons and contribute innovative solutions toward tackling hunger.
Okay, so before we officially end today's session, we would like to invite everyone for a photograph session. So kindly turn on your cameras and give us your best smile. So we'll give everyone about 20 seconds to turn on your camera. Can we get more participants to turn on the camera?
Come on, guys. Let's take a picture together. Please open your camera.
Okay. So, are you guys ready? All right. So, give us your best smile. I'll do the countdown. So, technical team, please screenshot. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Maybe we take one more. 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay.
Wait, still got page number 3.
Oh, okay. One more. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Okay, page number 4.
1, 2, 3, smile. Keep your smiles up. Come on, guys.
Last page.
Okay, last page. Okay, C for Comsil from Kimberly. Put up your hand, guys. Let's do a C. Okay, come on. 1, 2, 3. Okay,
C again.
C again. Okay, C again. Hold up your hand, guys.
Okay, done.
Okay, so thank you everyone for your wonderful cooperation. You may now turn off your cameras. So before we end our session, all participants will need to submit and will need to fill and submit a feedback form. So we will give you the link. Okay, so you guys can scan the QR on the screen to fill in the feedback form. For UPM student, you will also get merit.
So guys, please kindly scan the QR code that has been displayed on the screen to fill in the feedback form. And like Lan said just now, for UPM student, you will need to claim your merit. So your feedback is greatly appreciated as it helps us improve our future program. So on behalf of the organizing committee, thank you once again for joining webinar series Hack the Hunger. Don't forget to join us again for the next session on 14 March 2036. So please log your date. And for that session, we will focus on food security. Looking forward to seeing you guys there.
We truly appreciate your participation. Assalamualaikum and have a great and pleasant day ahead. Thank you very much.